I never thought I would see something like this in my own house. My husband, the man I had trusted for over 30 years, was creeping down the hallway like a thief in the night, tiptoeing, silent, careful. He was heading straight for Angela's room. I froze. My heart pounded. My hands shook. Every night. The same routine. Every night. Him slipping past me as if I were invisible. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. And then, just for a moment, I thought, maybe he was going to the kitchen. Maybe it was nothing. I told myself that, over and over. But something about the way he moved, the pauses, the glances over his shoulder, the hesitation in his steps, it all screamed deception. I am Claudia, 56 years old, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. I have lived a life full of love, disappointment, and lessons that left me careful and observant. I know when someone is lying. I know when someone is ashamed. I certainly know when someone is dangerous. And that night, I realized my husband was all three. Angela is quiet, polite, soft-spoken. She married my son just a few months ago. She is the kind of woman who smiles even when she is nervous, who does not make waves, who tries to stay invisible. But I could see it in her eyes. The hesitation, the slight flinch whenever he appeared, the quiet fear she tried to hide behind polite words and gentle nods. I had only just started noticing. And yet, what I saw made my stomach turn. That night, I stayed in the shadows, waiting, watching, heart hammering in my chest. "Good night, Claudia," he whispered as he kissed my cheek. The softness in his voice chilled me. Too gentle to be innocent. He walked past me, down the hall, toward her room, and I followed, in silence, keeping to the shadows. Angela was already in bed, pretending to read, pretending not to notice. Her hands trembled slightly. She did not look up. My chest tightened. I realized she had endured this before, probably many nights. Alone, silently, I felt a rage I had never known. And I felt pity, too. How could he do this? How could the man I trusted, the man I had loved, violate the sanctity of our home? I wanted to rush in, to yell, to drag him out. But I could not. Not yet. I needed proof. I had thought about confronting him, about telling Daniel, about calling someone, but none of that felt right. I needed to see the truth first, so I began planning. The next day, I installed a hidden camera in Angela's room, tucked behind a framed wedding photo of Daniel and me. Small, discreet, the kind that captures everything without being noticed. That night, I waited, heart racing, fingers tight around my phone as I monitored the feed. And then I saw him, opening the door just slightly, peeking in, slipping inside. The way he lingered, moving with purpose. It was not innocent. It was ownership, and Angela pretended to read her book, her eyes downcast, her hands shaking. I wanted to call out, to say something, anything. "Angela, are you okay?" But I did not. Not yet. I watched as he moved, small gestures, quiet words I could not hear. Every motion intentional, calculated, and my knees weakened. My stomach turned. This was not a fleeting mistake. This was deliberate, planned. He had been waiting for my son to leave, using the quiet nights to his advantage. And Angela, I remembered the small hints, the nervous laughter, the secrets she never shared. My husband knew those secrets. He had power over her. He had been orchestrating this all along. My hands shook. My breath caught. I almost stopped myself that night. What kind of wife spies on her husband? What kind of mother-in-law watches over her daughter-in-law in fear? But then I thought of Angela, her quiet eyes, her forced smiles, the way she flinched when he moved too close. And I knew I had to keep watching. I had to see the truth. Hours passed. He returned to bed. The hallway was quiet again. I whispered to myself, I always thought my husband loved me, but now I will see exactly who he really is. And I knew, even as I turned off the feed for the night, that what I was about to discover would leave me shattered, because the camera had captured more than just his betrayal. It had begun to capture a darkness I was not ready for, and what I saw next would make me realize I was already too late. The next few nights were unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh in the house, made me flinch. I could not sleep. Not really. My mind replayed the scene over and over. Him moving down the hallway, Angela sitting quietly in her room, pretending everything was ordinary. I watched her during the day, too. She scrubbed the same plate twice, just to keep her hands from shaking. She smiled politely when I spoke, but the tension in her shoulders, the quick glance at the hallway every few seconds, told me everything. Daniel was away, and that absence gave him freedom. He moved through our house like it belonged to him alone. I activated the hidden camera again that night. My hands were steady this time, but my chest was tight with anticipation. I had to know. He kissed me softly. Good night, Claudia, he whispered. The gentleness in his voice was unsettling. Too smooth, too calm. He passed me, walking toward Angela's room, and I followed in the shadows. Angela's book lay open on her lap, her eyes downcast. She shifted nervously as he approached. I wanted to call out, Angela, are you okay? But I stayed silent. He slipped inside her room, every movement measured, deliberate. He whispered words I could not hear. Her hands trembled just slightly. That was enough. Enough to confirm what my gut already knew. She was afraid. I felt a mix of rage and guilt. How could anyone endure this in silence? How could he believe he had the right to manipulate her, use knowledge of her past, to control her? My mind raced. I almost stopped watching. What kind of wife spies on her husband? What kind of mother-in-law watches over her daughter-in-law in fear? But I thought of her quiet eyes, her forced smiles, the way she flinched when he moved too close. And I knew I had to keep watching. Hours passed. He returned to our room. The hallway was quiet. I whispered to myself, how many nights had I slept beside a stranger? And then, a sharp knock. Not on her door, on mine. I froze. My hands clenched the sheets. My heart skipped a beat. Was it him? Was it someone else? I took a deep breath. Nothing. Just the house settling. Or maybe just my nerves. Angela stayed seated, pretending to read. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to her book. I could see her lips move as if she were whispering a prayer. The camera captured everything. Every glance, every tremor, every hesitation. It confirmed what I had feared. He was not acting out of desire alone. He was testing her, controlling her, measuring her reactions. Each night, he gained more power. And Angela, she was hiding more than I had realized. Small hints, subtle signs, traces of a past she did not speak about. Secrets he had used to manipulate her from the beginning. I felt my chest tighten. My knees weakened. The weight of it all pressed down on me. My husband's betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. And my son, my poor Daniel, away for work, completely unaware. I stayed up long after he returned, staring at the camera feed. I thought about confronting him, thought about warning Angela, thought about calling someone, but none of it felt right. Not yet. I needed the full truth. And my reflection stared back at me from the dark window. I whispered, I once believed the camera would show me the truth. Now I realize, some truths never sleep. The nights continued. I watched. Every detail, every gesture, every whispered word caught on the camera. And the more I saw, the more I realized this was only the beginning. The betrayal, the manipulation, the danger. It was far worse than I had imagined. I leaned closer to my phone, fingers clutching it tight, because the camera would show me everything next. And I was not sure I was ready for it. I could barely breathe that night. My fingers hovered over the phone screen, staring at the camera feed, willing myself to look, willing myself not to. Every sound in the house felt magnified. The ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, even the soft whistle of the wind through the trees outside. It all made my nerves fray. And then I saw him. He moved down the hallway with the same deliberate care. Every step measured, every glance over his shoulder calculated. Angela sat on her bed, book open, but her eyes were fixed on the floor. Her hands shook, and I could almost see her lips moving, whispering words I could not hear. She did not look up. She did not speak. She tried to be invisible, and in that house, it seemed she had no choice. He entered her room, closing the door quietly behind him. I leaned closer to the screen, straining to catch anything, any sound, any gesture that would confirm what my gut already feared. And then I saw it. A folder. A small, thin folder that he pulled from the bottom of her nightstand drawer. His hands were careful, precise, almost reverent in the way he handled it. He opened it, and I caught a glimpse of papers, photographs, documents I could not fully make out. And then he spoke. Do you remember what I told you? His voice was soft, but it carried an edge I could feel even through the camera. Angela flinched. She nodded slightly, her lips pressed together. I froze. He knew. He knew everything. Her past, the mistakes she had made, the secrets she had buried. He had used that knowledge, twisted it, held it over her, and now he was exploiting it for his own purposes. My stomach turned. I had suspected he was manipulative, controlling. But this was something else entirely. I thought about Daniel, my son. How could he have not seen this? How could he have been so blind? My hands tightened around the phone. He moved closer to her, leaning over, whispering again. I could not hear the words, but the way she shrank under his presence told me everything. The fear, the coercion, the resignation. It was deliberate. It was planned. From the beginning, he had orchestrated this. Every suggestion, every subtle nudge, every manipulation, it had all been part of his plan. I felt a cold fury rise in my chest. How long had this been going on? How long had Angela been living under this quiet terror in our home? I wanted to stop him right then. I wanted to burst into the room, scream at him, drag him out. But I did not. Not yet. I needed more proof. I needed the full picture. And then it hit me. This was not just about control, not just about fear. This was about something darker, something I had not even imagined yet. He was using her past to manipulate my son's life, to secure power, to ensure she could never fully speak, never fully resist. Every marriage decision, every suggestion, every subtle interference, it had all been for him, not for Daniel. I felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him and make him confess. Angela shifted slightly. and I noticed a photograph sticking out of the folder. Her expression in the picture, eyes wide, lips pressed together, told a story of fear, of shame, of someone trapped long before she ever met my son. And he had known. The realization hit me harder than anything before. He had not married her to my son out of love. He had married her for control, for power, for exploitation. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by anger. I had to protect her. I had to do something. But what could I do? I was just one woman, and yet I felt a strange surge of courage. I had the camera, the evidence. That was my weapon. The next day, I spoke to Angela, carefully, as if we were sharing secrets. "How are you holding up?" I asked gently. She looked at me, eyes glistening with tears, and whispered, "I try to be strong, but I do not know how much longer I can." My chest tightened. I reached out and held her hand, feeling the tremble in hers, the quiet desperation. I whispered, "You will not have to face this alone." That evening, I checked the camera again. My husband kissed me goodnight, whispered my name softly, and moved down the hall. Angela's eyes flicked toward the door. Her lips pressed together. She had learned to brace herself, to anticipate the inevitable. He entered her room, and I saw it all again. The folder, the documents, the photographs, the whispered words that carried threats and coercion. And Angela, shrinking, bending, silently obeying. I pressed my lips together to keep from crying out. I wanted the ground to swallow him. I wanted him gone. But I kept watching, because I knew the camera was recording everything. Every secret, every manipulation, every lie. And what I saw next made me realize that the betrayal was deeper than I had ever imagined. He was not just controlling her. He was using her, using the marriage, using her past. And he had planned it from the very beginning. I felt a shiver run down my spine. And in that moment, I understood that nothing would ever be the same in this house. I could not unsee it. I could not unhear it. I could not undo the truth. The camera had caught it all, and it would lead me to a decision I was not yet ready to make, because the first betrayal had been revealed. But the full story, the full darkness of what he had done, was only just beginning. The next morning, I could not eat. My stomach was tight, knotted up in anger and fear. I watched Angela move through the kitchen, carefully pouring coffee, humming softly, trying to make the house feel normal. Her movements were precise, rehearsed, but her eyes betrayed her. The slightest shadow of tension, a flinch at a creak in the floor, a quick glance toward the hallway, all told me she was still walking on a knife's edge. I cleared my throat. "Good morning, Angela," I said, keeping my voice steady. She looked up, forcing a small smile. "Good morning, Claudia," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost afraid to make a sound. I wanted to hug her, tell her that none of this was her fault, but I stayed still. I had learned, painfully, that words were dangerous. Actions were safer. Observations were safer. And the camera had already done more than words ever could. That day, I moved carefully around the house, pretending everything was ordinary. I folded laundry, watered the plants, cleaned the counters, all while keeping an eye on the hallway, listening for any unusual sound. Every shadow, every shift in the light, kept me tense. Even the clock seemed to tick louder. When evening came, I could not stay in my room. I waited in the hallway, phone in hand, heart pounding, hands gripping it so tightly I feared I would crush it. He kissed me lightly on the cheek. "Good night, Claudia," he said again, his voice smooth, almost gentle. Too gentle. Angela had finished her book and placed it carefully on the nightstand. She straightened the covers, brushed her hair back from her face, and waited. I could see her inhale, preparing herself for what was coming. He stepped inside. The door clicked softly behind him. I leaned in, my chest tight. He pulled the folder from her drawer again, as if it had become a ritual. And I realized that it was a ritual of power, of dominance. And I felt the cold rage rising in my chest. I could see Angela shrink slightly, her fingers tightening on the bedspread, her lips pressed together, barely moving. And then I noticed something new, a flash of defiance, a small, almost imperceptible tilt of her chin, as if she was telling him silently that she was not broken yet. I exhaled slowly. That small gesture, unnoticed by him, filled me with hope. Maybe she was stronger than I had realized. Maybe she had survived worse than this. But the danger was real, immediate, and deliberate. He whispered again. I could not hear the words, but I could see the effect. Angela flinched, then nodded. She obeyed. She had no choice. That night, I finally decided to confront her. Not him, not yet. Angela needed to know that she had an ally. Angela, I whispered, keeping my voice low. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She froze, eyes wide, then nodded slowly. I am here, I said softly. I will protect you, but we need to be careful. One wrong move, and he will know we are onto him. Understand? She swallowed hard. Yes, she whispered. Her voice was small, but I could hear the relief underneath the fear. I spent the rest of the evening planning, watching the camera feed, making notes. Every gesture, every whisper, every inch of movement catalogued carefully. I realized that knowledge was power, observation was protection. And yet, my mind wandered to what he had done to manipulate this marriage from the start. How carefully he had orchestrated it. How deeply he had hidden his intentions behind charm, behind polite smiles, behind the facade of love for my son. I could feel the cracks in the calm he presented. Subtle shifts, almost imperceptible. But there, a word too soft, a pause too long, a look in Angela's eyes that betrayed more than he intended. I remembered something she had whispered earlier that week while folding laundry. I should have told him the truth, she said quietly. But I was scared. The words replayed in my mind. The truth she feared to speak was exactly what he was exploiting. And now, finally, I understood the depths of his manipulation. I stayed up late that night, listening, observing. The camera captured everything, but my eyes scanned the hallway, my ears catching the smallest sound. He moved like a predator, precise and deliberate. And yet, I could see the cracks beginning. Angela shifted in her bed. A soft sigh, a whispered prayer. And then, for the first time, she looked toward the door, catching my gaze just for a moment. A tiny spark of recognition, of trust. That small gesture was everything. I realized then that the house had changed. The balance of power was shifting, though neither of us could act openly yet. The tension was almost tangible, like a string pulled taut, ready to snap. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that we were entering the most dangerous part of this game, because now he knew we were watching. Or perhaps he had always known, and that was part of his plan. Either way, the quiet calm of our home had been replaced with an unspoken battle, and it was only a matter of time before the first move would be forced. Angela whispered again, barely audible. Claudia, what are we going to do? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. We wait, I said. We watch. And when the time is right, we act. The hallway was silent. The clock ticked. and I knew that the next night, nothing would be the same. That night, I could not stay in my room. My body ached with tension, and my mind raced with every small detail I had seen on the camera over the past days. Every whisper, every movement, every glance he gave Angela. It all led to one unavoidable truth. I set the camera again, placing it closer this time. Not far from her bed. Not obvious, but enough to capture everything. My hands shook, but this was necessary. I had to know the full extent of what he was doing. He came down the hallway at his usual hour. The soft creak of the floorboards betrayed him, and I stiffened, clutching the phone. Angela was sitting on her bed, knees drawn up, her hands tightly gripping the covers. She did not look at him, but her eyes flicked toward the door, just once, like a silent plea for help. He stopped, leaning over her slightly. The folder was in his hand again, and then I heard it. "You know what will happen if you tell anyone," he said, his voice calm, almost casual, but every word dripped with control. Angela flinched, pressing her hands to her chest. Her eyes widened. I could see the panic in her face, the fear, the years of secrets he had weaponized against her. My stomach dropped. He had orchestrated this from the very beginning. Every smile, every encouragement he had given my son to marry her, all of it was designed to trap her, to manipulate her, to exploit a secret from her past that only he knew. And then the truth hit me like a punch to the gut. He had married her to my son not out of love, but because of what he could gain. He knew about her past, something dark, something she had never shared with anyone, and he used it to coerce her, to bend her will, to make her obedient, to control her, all under the guise of being family, under the guise of kindness. I felt my hands tremble, my chest tightening. Rage and horror burned through me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to storm into that room and rip the folder from his hands. But I could not. I had to keep watching. I had to capture the proof. And then, what I saw next shattered me even more. He leaned closer, whispering words I could not catch. And Angela, she nodded. She obeyed, not out of consent, but out of fear. Every night, every action, every manipulation was carefully planned. He had studied her, learned her weaknesses, exploited her trust, and used it to position himself in a place of absolute control. I could feel bile rise in my throat. The betrayal was deeper than anything I had imagined. Not just the act itself, but the way he had manipulated every part of our lives, including my son's. Daniel was away, working late nights, thinking everything was fine, thinking his father loved him and Angela genuinely. And all the while, he had been using them, using her. I felt tears burn my eyes, but I pressed them back. I could not afford to lose control. I had to think. I had to plan. I had to protect Angela, even if it meant keeping my rage bottled up for now. Angela's eyes met mine for the briefest moment. A silent plea, a silent acknowledgement that she was trapped, that she was afraid, but that she also trusted me. The camera had shown me everything, every whispered word, every subtle movement, every sign of manipulation. And then I realized the full extent of the betrayal. He had planned the marriage, coerced her into it, and now held her past over her like a weapon. I felt a wave of helplessness. But then, slowly, a spark of determination ignited. I could not undo what had been done. I could not erase the past or the manipulations. But I could intervene. I could protect her. I could gather enough evidence to confront him, not just for my sake, but for Angela's and for Daniel's. That night, as he returned to our room, unaware that I was still watching, I whispered to myself, I will not let this continue. Not one more night. I knew the road ahead would be dangerous. I knew he was cunning, manipulative, and patient. But I also knew that the truth was on my side, and the camera had recorded it all. The betrayal was real. The danger was real. And for the first time, I felt ready to act. Because what I saw that night, the evidence, the manipulation, the control, it was proof enough to change everything. And I realized then that the first major betrayal was only the beginning. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, hands gripping the sheets. Every sound in the house made me flinch. The hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of the wind, the faint creak of the floorboards. Each one reminded me of him, moving through our home with the quiet authority of a predator. I kept thinking about Angela, her small frame, her trembling hands, the way she flinched every time he came near. How many nights had she spent like that? How many mornings had she hidden the bruises of fear that no one else could see? My chest tightened, and tears burned my eyes. I wanted to scream, to throw the covers off and confront him right there, in the dark. But I did not. I could not. Not yet. I had to plan. I had to protect her. And the camera had captured everything. Every word, every gesture, every manipulation. I had proof. But knowing that did not stop the rage. I got out of bed and paced the hallway. The silence pressed against me like a weight. My mind replayed every scene I had watched over the past nights. His control, her fear, the folder, the documents, the photographs. It made my stomach turn. I thought about Daniel, my poor son, working late nights, believing his father was a good man, believing he was safe, believing that Angela, his wife, was happy. And all the while, he was being used. I clenched my fists. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, the tight knot in my chest. I wanted to rush into her room, grab her, tell her it would be all right, that I would handle it. But I knew better. I could not act recklessly. Not yet. Instead, I let the rage build silently, like a storm gathering behind closed doors. I thought of all the nights he had come into her room, the nights he had manipulated her, the nights he had used the secret from her past to control her. I felt violated, powerless, furious. And yet, there was something else. A plan was forming in my mind, a way to protect her, a way to stop him. But it required patience. And patience was the hardest thing in the world to muster when your blood is boiling. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. My hands trembled slightly. I whispered to myself, "Claudia, you cannot let him win. You cannot let him destroy her life." Angela was asleep when I finally returned to her room. Camera in hand, her small form looked peaceful. Unaware that the predator who had manipulated her for weeks was just steps away. I stared at the camera feed, watching him move through the hall again. Every night, the same routine, the same control. And yet, I could see cracks in his composure. Subtle ones. A pause too long. A glance that lingered. A hesitation he did not realize I had noticed. It was small, but it gave me hope. I sat there for hours, silently observing, silently planning. My anger simmered like hot coals in my chest, but I kept it contained. Silent rage, they call it. And that is exactly what it was. Hours later, when he finally returned to our room, I let out a soft breath I did not realize I had been holding. My body was exhausted, but my mind was sharper than ever. I had seen everything. I had proof, and I knew what I had to do next. But the emotional toll was real. I felt hollow, drained, and yet fueled by the intensity of the betrayal. I thought about confronting him directly, about demanding answers, about exposing him, but I knew I had to wait for the right moment. Angela's safety came first. My rage was a tool now, a weapon to be used with precision, not recklessness. I whispered again to myself, barely audible, I will not let him destroy her. I will not let him win. And in that quiet, dark night, as I watched the camera feed once more, I realized something terrifying. This was only the beginning. The silent rage, the emotional breakdown, the moral turmoil, all of it was leading to a confrontation that could change everything. I clenched my fists one last time, staring at the empty hallway, and I knew, deep down, that when the time came, there would be no turning back. The next evening, I could not wait any longer. My heart was heavy, my hands clammy, but I knew it was time. The time to confront him, to assert control, to protect Angela, even if it meant standing against the man I had once trusted with my life. I waited in the hallway, phone in hand, camera feed open. Angela sat on her bed, eyes wide, knees drawn close, hands clenched. I whispered softly, "Stay calm. Just stay calm." He appeared in the hallway, folder in hand, moving with the same precision, the same quiet authority he had for weeks. But this time, I was ready. "Harold," I called, my voice firm but steady. He froze mid-step, head tilting slightly. "Claudia," his voice smooth, almost to calm, like he had expected this challenge eventually. "Yes, it's me," I said. I stepped closer, letting the tension fill the hallway. "We need to talk." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides secrets. "Now, in front of Angela?" I nodded. "Yes, in front of her. Everything stops tonight." Angela flinched, shrinking back slightly, but I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's all right," I whispered. "We're not going to let him scare you anymore." He walked into the room slowly, like a predator circling his prey. "Claudia, what's this about?" he asked, his tone measured, casual, but there was an edge to it, a warning beneath the words. "I've seen enough," I said, voice firm, steady. "I know what you've been doing. Every night, every manipulation, every word to control her. And I know why you did it." His eyes flickered, but he did not move. "Claudia, I don't know what. Don't lie to me." I snapped, more forceful than I intended. "I have the camera. I have proof. You orchestrated her marriage to exploit her, to manipulate her, to use a secret from her past. You think my son would forgive you if he knew? You think she would forgive you?" His jaw tightened. The calm veneer cracked slightly. I saw it, and I held onto it. The shift in power, the first ripple of fear in his eyes. Angela's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "Claudia, what will happen now?" I looked at her, my heart aching. "Now, we take control. We make him answer for what he's done." He straightened, his posture rigid, a faint sneer crossing his face. "You think you can threaten me?" he said, voice low, controlled, but tense. "I'm not threatening," I said calmly, slowly. "I'm exposing. I'm protecting. You underestimated us. You underestimated Angela, and you underestimated me." He glanced at her, then back at me. "Do you really think you have any idea what you're dealing with?" I swallowed hard, but my resolve did not waver. "I have more than an idea. I have proof. Every word, every action, every manipulative move you made. It's all recorded. And it's over, Harold." His lips pressed into a thin line. I could see the anger and frustration building beneath the surface. For once, he had no control. The The carefully constructed mask of charm, authority, and intimidation was crumbling. Angela shifted, finding a sliver of courage. I want this to stop, she whispered. I can't live like this anymore. Her voice hit him harder than anything I could say. He flinched, a micro-expression of guilt or fear flashing across his face. Something he rarely showed. I pressed forward, stepping closer. You've hurt her. You've betrayed your family. And now you have to answer for it. We will not let you continue. The tension in the room was palpable. You could feel it like electricity, charged and dangerous. Every heartbeat, every shallow breath, filled the silence. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, "You think you can ruin me? You think you can humiliate me?" "I don't need to humiliate you," I said quietly. "You're already doing it to yourself. Every secret, every manipulation, every cruel act, it's all on record. The truth will come out. That's enough." He glared, but he was quieter now, contained, measuring. The power had shifted. The predator was no longer in control. The hunted had found their voice, and it was strong. Angela exhaled softly, relief and disbelief mingling in her expression. I squeezed her hand. "We're not done yet," I said, "but the first move has been made." He stepped back, finally. His authority, his dominance, his manipulation, it was crumbling. I saw fear, real fear, in his eyes now. And in that moment, I realized something important. The confrontation was not just about stopping him. It was about reclaiming the home, reclaiming the family, reclaiming Angela's life. But I also knew this battle was far from over, because he was cunning, and cunning men do not give up easily. The hallway felt charged, heavy, as he left the room silently, almost defeated, almost calculating his next move. Angela sank back onto the bed, tears streaming silently, shaking. "I can't believe it's finally happening," she whispered. I pulled her into a careful embrace. "It's happening, baby. It's happening, and I will make sure you are safe. We're going to get through this together." The night stretched on, long and tense. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and inside, a quiet determination settled over us. We had taken the first step, the first assertion of power, the first declaration that his reign of fear was over. But I knew the road ahead would be treacherous, and the next move, his next move, would be coming soon. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness I could not shake. Sleep had been shallow, filled with fragments of the confrontation from the night before. His eyes, that glint of calculation, haunted me. But there was no turning back now. The truth had to come out, fully, without delay. I went to the living room, phone and camera ready, my heart pounding. Angela was already awake, sitting on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked up at me, hesitant, fragile, but there was a spark in her eyes now, a spark I had not seen before. "I need to show you something," I said softly. "Something you should know about your past, and about him." Her hands trembled, and she nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. I'm ready." I pulled up the footage from the hidden camera, and as the first images appeared on the screen, I saw him moving through the hallway. Every step deliberate, every glance calculated, every word whispered, designed to control, manipulate, and exploit. I paused, letting her take it in. "Look closely," I said. "Notice how he knows exactly what to say to make you obey. Every subtle threat, every pause, every glance. It's intentional." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God," she murmured. I thought it was just me imagining things. I thought maybe I was overreacting. No, I said firmly. You were not overreacting. You were being controlled. Every move you made, he had anticipated. And there's more. I pulled up the next part of the footage, showing the folder he had carried with him. Documents, photos, letters, proof of her past. Not shameful things, but things he had twisted into weapons against her. Things he had used to coerce her, to manipulate her, to make her comply with his desires. Her hands flew to her mouth. He knew all of it. She whispered, He planned this. He used me? I nodded, tears blurring my vision. Yes, from the very beginning, he orchestrated your marriage. He manipulated Daniel, manipulated everyone. Also, he could have control over you, so he could exploit your past. The room fell silent except for her quiet sobs. I could see the weight of realization pressing down on her, the betrayal cutting deep, deeper than any physical harm could. I took a deep breath, my own hands trembling. Angela, I know this is terrifying. I know it feels like your world is falling apart, but you are not alone. We have proof. We can stop him. You do not have to live like this anymore. She looked at me, her face a mix of fear, anger, and relief. I don't know if I can ever forgive him, or even face him, she said softly. You don't have to forgive him right now, I said. Right now, you just have to survive. And we will make sure of that. We will make sure he never hurts you again. I paused, letting the gravity of the situation settle. There's something else, I said, my voice low. The camera shows more than just manipulation. It shows a plan he had, a way to exploit your past to isolate you completely. He wanted control over every aspect of your life, and he thought no one would ever see it. Her eyes widened. He was going to destroy me completely. Yes, I said, and that is why we must act. Not tomorrow, not later. Now. Because every second we wait, he regains power. Angela shivered, but I could see determination slowly forming in her expression. Okay, she said, finally. I trust you. What do we do? I smiled faintly, though the weight in my chest did not lift. First, we gather everything, the footage, the documents, every detail. Then we confront him in a way that he cannot control. And finally, we protect you from him entirely. Her hands gripped mine. I never thought anyone would see through him. I never thought anyone would care enough to help me. You are not alone, I whispered. Not anymore. And he will not win. The room was quiet after that, except for the soft sound of her breathing and the hum of the camera feed. But I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The truth had dropped like cold poison, harsh, undeniable, irreversible, and now he would have to face the consequences. Because secrets, no matter how carefully hidden, always have a way of surfacing, and I would be there when they did. The house felt different the next morning, heavy, quiet, tense. Even the sunlight streaming through the windows seemed cautious, as if it knew the truth had finally surfaced and could not be unseen. I moved carefully, each step deliberate, heart pounding in my chest. Today, everything would change. Angela was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, hands wrapped tightly around the mug. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was a new strength there, fragile, yes, but unmistakable. She looked up at me and whispered, I think I'm ready. I nodded, taking a deep breath. You've been ready for a long time. Now, we just need him to see the truth. I led her to the living room. The camera feed and all the footage were queued up, ready. I had printed copies of the documents, the letters, the folder he had so carefully hidden. Everything was there, laid bare. Harold walked in, casual, pretending he didn't sense the tension. But I could see it, the flicker in his eyes, the slightest hesitation in his step. For once, he was not in control. Claudia, Angela, what is all this? His voice was calm, measured, but I detected the tremor underneath. The first crack in his composure. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit, I said, firm, unyielding. It's time you understand what you've done. It's time you see the truth. He hesitated, glanced at Angela, then at the camera, then sat reluctantly. His eyes darted around, calculating, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. I pressed play on the footage. The images filled the screen. Every step down the hallway, every whisper, every manipulation. His eyes on Angela, his hands holding the folder, his voice, calm, controlling, cruel. Angela's hands were trembling, but she did not look away. She was watching him see himself for what he had done. He froze, lips pressed thin. This is. You've been spying on me? Yes, I said, and now you will see the truth of who you really are. Every move, every word, every plan to control her, to exploit her, to manipulate this family. It is all here. His eyes flickered with anger, but also fear. You think you can ruin me with this? He hissed. I do not have to think, I said. It is already ruined. Your control is gone. Your manipulation is exposed. And now you face the consequences. Angela stood, gathering her courage. You used me, she said, voice trembling but firm. You manipulated me. You lied to me. You exploited my past. You thought no one would see. But we did. And now it ends. Harold's face went pale. For the first time, I saw real fear, real panic. He had built his life on lies, and every lie was collapsing around him. You think you can take away everything I've built? He spat, voice breaking. It's not about taking away, I said, stepping closer. It's about justice. It's about making sure you can never hurt her again, or anyone else. We are not afraid of you anymore. Angela's voice grew stronger. I will not live in fear of you. Not anymore. You will not control me, and you will not control this family. He slumped slightly, realizing that his power was gone. Every carefully orchestrated plan, every manipulation, every secret, laid bare. The proof was undeniable, and in that moment, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The rage that had consumed me for weeks had shifted into clarity. The betrayal was real. The danger was real. But so was the strength we now held together. He tried to speak, tried to justify, tried to manipulate, but it was too late. The words fell flat, empty, meaningless against the weight of the truth. Angela took my hand, and I squeezed it tightly. We're free, she whispered. I nodded, though I knew freedom would not erase the scars. The betrayal would linger, the memory of manipulation would remain, and the shadow of his deceit would never completely vanish. But we had survived, and that was enough for now. Harold stood in silence, finally. His face was a mask of defeat, his eyes hollow. He knew, as I did, that the balance of power had shifted forever. I felt a bittersweet release. Relief, yes, but also sorrow for the years lost, the trust broken, the damage done. Family ties had been tested, boundaries violated, but in this moment, the scales were tipping back toward justice, and then, as he turned to leave the room, I saw it, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. The predator had not completely vanished. He had been defeated, yes, but cunning men do not surrender easily. I whispered under my breath, mostly to myself, "We're not done yet, but we will be ready." Angela's hand found mine again, firm, grounding. "Together," she said. "Together," I echoed. The weight of the betrayal still pressed on us, but so did the strength of truth, courage, and the undeniable bond we had formed in the storm of deception. And though the night ahead would be long, and the consequences far-reaching, for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope because justice had been claimed, and the reckoning had begun.